Hello, I'm Marshall Goldsmith, and I'm here with my great friend and fellow coach, Chris Coffey. Chris, great to see you.
Nice to see you, Marshall.
Chris and I have known each other for many, many, many years, and you know, in my job as an executive coach, I've also been directly or indirectly responsible for the training of thousands of coaches, and I've got to say Chris is one of the top of the list. Now, when I say top, what do I mean? Well, to me, the measure of a great coach is not how many degrees you have or how many books you've written. It's, do you get positive, measurable results in behavior? Do you get clear change in behavior? And of all the coaches that I've worked with, Chris is just one of the top. Chris also, along with my great colleague Frank Wagner, does the training for stakeholder-centered coaching and has trained hundreds or more coaches. So Chris, in terms of actually managing the process of stakeholder-centered coaching, I would put you right at the top in terms of success. Your results are just as good as mine. Can you share with people what are some of the things you do that you think help you be successful?
Well, that's a great question, Marshall. You know, as I think back on that, I'll go back to around 2000 when we really started to do this. And I think it was you asked Frank or Frank asked you if you thought everybody was coaching the way you were. Mm. And you said you didn't know. And you said, do something about it, Frank. So Frank and I actually created the stakeholder-centered coaching certification that we started back in around 2001. And I would say, you know, I wish I knew then what I know now. It's been a journey, and I believe Frank and I teaching it, and we've trained them in the U.S. close to 700 coaches now.
Right. You
get better every time. You know, it's the saying, if you can't do, teach. My philosophy is, if you can do, teach. And I think whenever we teach it, we learn. We learn from our students, and it reinforces the process. So if you think about the process that you actually built off of your method, we work with successful people. And we got into the article you wrote on, you know, what are the belief sets of successful people? I'm clear, I don't take an assignment. I'm not a savior.
Right.
If somebody's on a slippery banana peel out the door, then,
right.
You know, that's not what we do. You know, the way I define myself as a coach, it builds off of what you said. I help successful people have a positive change in behavior that's sustainable and that's recognized and acknowledged by others. And that's what ties into, you know, I think the uniqueness of our process. When people ask me about why is the stakeholder-centered coaching process so powerful, number one, people only pick a couple of things to work on.
Right.
You know, and we do the 360 interview, however you get to them. And they'll pick things like delegate, collaborate, listen, hold people accountable, present my point of view persuasively, whatever comes out of the data.
I've done this for years. I have never seen anything that wasn't pretty much common sense.
Well, yes. We say common sense because we do it. My question is, why don't more people do this?
Yeah, it's not common practice.
It's not common practice.
Right.
And they pick a couple things. And then I would say to them, okay, who are the people that'll know if you've done this?
Right.
And that's how we engage the active engagement of stakeholders, which most coaching processes, as I know, don't do that.
Oh, some of them are the opposite. Some of them, in fact, say, you can't tell people you have a coach. This is some secret up there that, you know, and obviously there's no way to measure change in behavior because no one even knows you have a coach or you're trying to change behavior and there's no one to do the measuring. Can you just take a step back and give us kind of a blow-by-blow overview, you know, a short version of the coaching process, how it works?
You interview. Generally, the person that's going to get the coach interviews 3 or 4 coaches and they'll select someone.
Okay.
And then I'm really clear in that process. This is how I work. I don't get paid unless you improve, and that's clear. And that's unique.
Right.
And if I get the engagement, I'll say, okay, who are a dozen people I can interview?
Right.
That'll know, you know, and I'll ask them what's Marshall's strengths, what are areas Marshall could improve, what do you think the most important thing for Marshall to improve? And what suggestions would you give them? And I write it all up. I send it back to the person that I interviewed.
And you can't tell who said what?
No. And then I put it into a 360 and I sit down with the person I'm coaching, and from that they'll pick a couple of things.
Right.
Delegate, collaborate, listen, whatever it is. Then they have to talk to their boss, their immediate manager, and say, these are the 2 things I want to work on, and these are the people I want as stakeholders. We enroll the stakeholders. We tell them their responsibility in this.
I think it's also real important you get the boss to sign off on it the way you do, because That way, you don't coach a person for a year and then the boss says they got better at the wrong thing. So that's a small, but I think very important point too. So I like that.
Yeah, thank you. And that comes right from you. I mean, I think early on, if I go back almost 20 years, I don't think I did that then.
Right.
And then you get burnt a couple times
Right.
and you learn. So that's part of the process of good coach learning. And that's what we teach people in the certification. Don't take a bad deal.
Right.
Don't take a bad deal. You know, the one time I did not get paid, I like to tell people it was ego.
Oh, yeah.
And they say, oh, the person had that ego. I said, no, my ego, mine.
Totally agree. I've not gotten paid more than once, and the problem is always my ego. I can't. By the way, we don't have to do this. So
Right.
if we fail, whose fault is it?
Yeah, it's ours.
Yeah, we fail. Yeah,
take a
it's
bad
not the
deal.
client's fault.
Now, I love being able to say, you're going to have to do the heavy lifting.
Right.
And then we engage the stakeholders, we get suggestions from them, the whole feed forward concept. And for me personally, the person I'm working with has to share that action plan with the stakeholders and say, hold me accountable to do these things. One of the things I ask the stakeholders to do is to let go of the past. Don't, you can't be don't be a critic, a cynic, or a judge.
Right.
And be supportive of the process.
Let me stop you for a second. I think it's really important because we teach people to reach out to their stakeholders and talk to them. If I reach out to you and you're cynical and sarcastic and act like a jerk, I'm going to quit. You know, I'm saying, wait a minute, why am I bothering with this jerk? On the other hand, if you're positive and supportive, I'm much more likely to continue. So I think it's a really important point.
And I ask the stakeholders, think about the benefit to you when and if this person becomes more effective at the things you've told them
Right.
you'd like them to get more effective at.
It's to their advantage.
It's to their advantage. So let go of the past. Don't be a critic, cynic, or a judge. Be supportive of the process. And the last thing that we do that's so critical is the measurement piece, the mini survey, that literally it takes people 5 minutes or less to complete.
Explain to everybody how that works.
Well, a mini survey, let's say the person I'm working with picks, I'm going to collaborate more effectively and I'm going to delegate more effectively. They're the two things they picked.
Sure.
In the mini survey, it'll say, 4 months ago, Joe committed to collaborate more effectively. On a scale of -3 to +3, is he more effective?
Right.
Has he followed up with you? To what extent has he followed up with you?
Right.
Now, one of the other key components of the process is the follow-up, which we know is critical. We have the 8-company study, the 1,000 manager study. And this, I like to tell people that I'm coaching, this process takes courage,
Right.
discipline, and humility.
Explain each one of those in a little bit of detail.
Courage. The courage to say, as good as I am, I've looked at the 360, I've heard what people said, and I could become more effective at collaborating.
And you're right, it's hard to look in the mirror. It's hard for me, it's hard for you, it's hard for all of us. That does take courage.
And these are very successful people.
It's hard.
And so I tell them it takes courage. And I like to say to them, not everybody's up to it.
Right.
Do you think you can do this?
Right.
Now, the average executive isn't going to look you in the eye and say, I'm not up to this.
Right.
But you put them on record that yes,
Right.
they have. The discipline. It's easy to say I'm going to collaborate better. Well, what do you have to do more of? Less of? What do you need to start doing that you're not doing?
And
And what do you need to stop doing? Back to your unrecognizable habits, winning too much, adding too much value, and
the
getting them to see those.
And the discipline of the day follow-up is hard. It's, I'm busy, I'm tired, I'll do it next week. It's hard to have that discipline. And the third one is humility. What do you think about humility?
To say, as good as I am, I could get better at something.
Hard to do.
It's versus, let me tell you how good I am.
Me.
And,
Yeah, very hard.
So I like to emphasize those in the interview process because when I'm interviewing for an engagement, and what we teach other coaches to do, is to let them know what they're getting into.
Yeah.
This is not clandestine, just you and I are working together, nobody's going to know about it.
Very transparent.
The courage is to go public.
Yeah.
I want to get better at these couple of things.
Right.
And it takes courage.
One thing I really respect about you is, and I think in your own sense, is an ego. Because I think one of the problems with coaches, including myself, is this process works. The process doesn't work if you don't do it. And one of the things I really respect about you is you have a great discipline yourself in following the process.
Thank you.
You don't sit there and try to reinvent the wheel. And you don't make it all about you. You're going to get better because of me as a coach. That's one of the things I tell my coaching clients is, I don't get paid because I'm a good coach. I get paid because you're a good customer. don't make it about me. Well, I think you do a great job of that because you really don't make it about you. You're a facilitator. Probably the greatest leader I've ever met in my life, or one of them is Alan Mulally, who was the CEO of Ford. And his whole model is leader is exactly the same as our coaching model. Leader is facilitator. Yeah. He gets people in a room. He doesn't try to provide all the answers. He has them, when they have a problem, reach out to everyone around him and say, help me, feed forward, give me ideas. Yeah. He turned around the Ford Motor Company doing that. One of the reasons he was so successful, though, is he didn't interject himself all the time. As a coach, when you start saying, I want you to do this and that and the other, then all of a sudden it's all about you. You know, Chris, my mission is helping successful leaders achieve positive long-term change in behavior for themselves, their people, and their teams. And I think one thing that we do is really focus on helping successful leaders. And some people ask me, well, what about people that don't care? Well, I don't work with people that don't care. And I'm not saying somebody else shouldn't. They can if they want to, but they don't get paid for results. And if you get paid for results, I think it's better to work with people that care. And also, if you look at research on coaching, it's really helping successful leaders get better, not taking people who are about to get killed and then try to salvage them. What's your feeling on all this?
I tell people don't take a bad engagement. And, you know, I have a rather humorous line, I think, often, depending on how the conversation rolls along. And I use the phrase, this process is simple. It's not easy.
Right.
I had one person say, well, it sounds very complicated to me. I said, no, it's rather simple. Pick a couple things, engage stakeholders, tell them what you're going to work on, build a plan, share it with them, ask them periodically if they've noted the difference, do a mini survey, and what's complicated about that? Right. It's far from easy. Far from easy. At getting anybody to change behavior and sustain it. You can do anything for a couple of weeks.
Right.
And how do you sustain it? My measure of success is if at the end of a year, the stakeholders say, you know, when Joe said that he was going to delegate more effectively, knowing what a micromanager he's been, I thought, you know, this is just another HR boondoggle that's not going to stick. And here we are a year later. Right. And it's really interesting to watch how he's done it. And I've learned a lot myself doing it. And I don't think he's going to bounce back.
Good.
And that's the measure of success for me as a coach.
That is the measure of success. And I think, again, very important concept that we do, working with winners, high potential leaders, people that have the opportunity to be promoted. In my case, CEOs of major corporations or future CEOs, those are the only people I work with. And you might say, well, why do they need help? Well, they need help because they're smart. How many of the top 10 tennis players have a coach? All 10. They have multiple coaches. Well, it's not because they're stupid, it's because they're smart. And one of the things I love about the concept of working with winners, and it is a counterintuitive concept, is our job is to help those successful people get even better. And that is our entire focus. So I think it's a great idea.
You know, one of the things I often describe myself to is helping shorten people's learning curve. I love when somebody says to me, well, this will come with maturity. And I say, well, nothing comes with maturity or age, just age. Right. You know, we all know old fools that continue to make the same mistakes over and over again. Right. And I think as you and I discussed, we're working with smart, successful people. Right. So the next logical conclusion is, why should I change anything? Right. So once somebody says, you know, I could do a better job of fill in the blank, how do you help facilitate that process?
And, help them get there? And it's something I talk about in my book, What Got You Here Won't Get You There, the superstition trap. Many successful people fall into that trap. I behave this way, I'm successful. I must be successful because I behave this way. The smart ones realize, I am successful, I behave this way. I'm successful because of most of what I do, or I wouldn't be in this conversation. And we're all successful in spite of doing some things that need improvement. And I think a great idea of our philosophy is really work with those great people and help them realize what got you here won't get you there. And our job is to help them get to the next level. Yeah. Great job of that. How do you kind of avoid that temptation to butt in and make it all about you as opposed to making it all about those great stakeholders?
Well, in a coaching process, you got the process and you have the content that the coach brings to it. I've talked a bit about the process, the stakeholder-centered coaching process. The content, I think each coach has to know what's their subject matter expertise. Right. And I think Alan Mulally came from Boeing to a car company. People sitting in front of him, senior vice presidents, knew more about a car company.
He can't tell them what to do.
He can't, you know. So now I think when people ask me, what kind of coach are you? I say I'm a leadership and communication coach.
Right.
Well, I'm not a life coach. If what you do helps you in your life, great. And so there's no real discipline out there of what kind of coach you can be. So I tell people, I don't even say executive coach. I'll say I'm a leadership coach. I help people get better at leadership skills and communication skills. So I look at what I've done for 30 years, you know, from situational leadership. I've taught conflict management, decision making. I teach argumentation. So these are skills I know I bring. So you have to know when to make a suggestion.
Right.
And one of the things I do, I'll ask permission. I'll say, can I give you a suggestion? I'm big on asking questions to see where they go, but I think you would agree, you know, you got a busy executive in front of you. You know, this is not, let's be Carl Rogers and ask questions forever. If you can help somebody, you know, send it out. The little emails they do. I'm not going to make some senior executive fumble around over the email that he needs to send out to stakeholders.
Right.
So you need to be able to blend. What do you make them do? I won't tell them what they should work on. They're going to have to ponder that 360.
Sure.
I'm going to ask questions. I'm going to push back. What do you see as the benefits to this?
Good.
And they're going to have to tell me why they want to get better.
Yeah,
at
that's
this.
a great observation. I just got a LinkedIn message yesterday. A person asked me some topic about some macro level thing. And I just sent a note back and I said, I am not an expert on that topic.
Yeah.
Well, he sent me another note back like, you're being evasive. You should answer that
Yeah. question.
I said, no, I really don't have to answer that question. I don't have to answer any question, number one.
Yeah.
I've never met you. And number two, I always tell myself, if I'm not an expert on this topic, why am I speaking? Why am I talking?
Right.
If anybody in the world could answer a question as well as me, why am I talking? And back to my friend Alan, who led Ford so well, when people would come to him with problems, he would always fight that urge to just start talking, especially as a CEO.
Yeah.
If you start talking, then they do what you say. And he would fight that urge to talk and just listen and then say, all right, who is the best person qualified to solve your problem? And what I love about stakeholder-centered coaching is, let's say you're my stakeholder. And I get feedback that says, I'm not doing a great job of listening. Well, as a coach, we can give a person generic advice on how to be a good listener. It's probably good advice. On the other hand, that's not what matters. What matters is, what does listening mean to you?
Yeah.
And the best person in the world to tell me what listening means to you is you. The best person in the world to help me listen to you is you, not some outside person. And what I love about the way you manage this entire process is of all the coaches I work with, you're definitely one of the best at keeping that clear focus. So what are we here for? Follow a process. And it's like the doctor going in for a surgery. The nurse has a series of questions from a checklist, and if the doctor goes through the questions, they do better. Well, I think you're like that. You really are very disciplined in sticking with the plan. What advice do you have for other people who are, I'm going to ask you two questions. Number one, interested in becoming stakeholder-centered coaches. And then number two, people who are stakeholder-centered coaches. What advice do you have? First, people are interested in becoming one. What advice might you have for them?
We get a lot of people will call and say, one, they'll ask if you're going to drive business for them. And the answer to that is clearly no, because I think there's so many coaches out there because there's no real criteria to be a coach. Anybody can be a coach. All they got to do is have a business card. So I'll ask people what their background is and why do they want to do this. I mean, I see myself as a teacher. Often when people ask me, what do? I say I'm a teacher. Because I think that's what I do. And I ask them what they think they're going to get out of this and why they want to do it. And what do they bring to it? What do they bring to it? And so that's really, do you want to come to the certification? I'll also tell you, out of the close to 700 in the United States, so many people, they have to be able to go out and get business for themselves. You know, and they have difficulty doing that. A lot of people think it's just going to happen if you get a certification, and it doesn't. So I think for people that want to do it, do they have a passion for helping people get better? I get a thrill when an executive calls me and says, you know, in the meeting, I asked them this particular question, and they're like little kids. I mean, you watch them growing and developing. That's a huge reward for me. Now, for the stakeholders, after I've had a teleconference with them and I explain that so-and-so has asked them to be a stakeholder, one of the things I emphasize is this is not going to take up your time.
Right.
Because that's the number one point. I don't have the time to do this.
Right.
And I say, all we're asking you to do is to pay attention. Because Joe's going to pick a couple things to work on. Delegate, collaborate, listen, hold people accountable, listen to different points of view, whatever it is. All we're going to ask you to do is to pay attention. Because he's going to put an action plan together and share it with you. And then the second thing is, when the mini survey does go out, be honest.
Tell the truth.
Don't overinflate it,
Right.
and don't hold on to the past.
Right.
And that's all we're asking you to do. And periodically, the person I'm coaching is going to ask you, because part of the deal for them is, every 4 to 5 weeks, they're going to say, I'm working at collaborating.
Right.
In the last month or so, have you noticed a difference?
Right.
Be honest.
Yeah.
Be honest, pay attention, and that's all we're asking you to do.
And it's to their advantage.
And it's to their advantage too.
Now, what advice would you have for the people who have been certified? And you say, look, now you've been certified, you're out doing this coaching, you're using this process. Here are some of the things to do and maybe some of the traps to watch out for.
Watch out about your ego and thinking that they got better because of you.
By the way, to me, that's the biggest problem of every coach I've ever trained, including myself, the ego of the coach. We want people to get better, so we look in the mirror and feel good about ourselves. Me.
I'll share with you a story. We did the first mini survey with the senior vice president that I was working with, and I get a text from him just before I get on an airplane, and he said, I just met with my boss, and I want to share with you what happened. I said, well, I'm on a plane. As soon as I land, I'll call you. So I land, and he said it went really well. I shared with him the results of my mini survey, and he said that he was really pleased with me as a coach and that I was doing a great job. And I said, well, that's a nice compliment. Let me be clear. You've done the heavy lifting. All I've done is facilitate a process. And he said to me, you're damn right I did the heavy lifting.
And it's true.
It's true.
Well, the other thing you always say, and I totally agree with, is with my clients, the people I coach, what is the cost of them hiring me? The cost is their time. I mean, I'm the coach of Ian Reed, the CEO of Pfizer, the world's largest drug company, Jim Kim, president of World Bank. I've worked with the CEO of Walmart and all these people. What's the cost? The cost is their time. I'm not there to waste their time.
Yeah.
To me, many coaches get paid on bad measures. How much time do you spend? Terrible measure. And then does the client like the coach? A terrible measure. Well, I don't get paid because they love me, although most of them like me. That's not what I get paid for. And I don't get paid for spending time. I get paid for results. And the less time we spend to get those results, the better it is for everybody. So I love your focus on clarity, prioritization. Don't waste time and don't make it about ego.
You know, I think of one I interviewed for the head of biologistics for a major pharma. And he had interviewed 7 or 8 coaches, I guess, and I was the last one. So I fly to meet him, and we go out to lunch, and we're back in his office, and he says something, and I made a suggestion, and he said, well, I'm uncomfortable doing that. And I said, and? He said, well, I'm uncomfortable doing that. And I said, and? He said, well, I don't want to do it. And I said, well, let's establish a ground rule. You're interviewing for coaches. If you're looking for a coach that's going to keep you comfortable for the next year, you can eliminate me now. My job is to pull and to push to help you get to where you said you want to go, not me. The next day I get a call from the HR department, and the woman says to me, well, I met with Eric this morning, and he walks into my office and he says, that guy Coffey makes me uncomfortable. So she said, I thought he was going to eliminate you right away. And he said, I think that's who I need to work with. And I said to her, can I tell him you told me that? She said, sure. And when I got on the phone with him, I said, I was told this. And he said, I asked you if you skied, and you said yes, and you were a downhiller, and I did cross country. I asked if you played a musical instrument, and you didn't, and we had nothing in common. Nothing. And I'd already settled on a couple of other coaches. And he said, what dawned on me was, I think I could manipulate those other 2 coaches. And you were clear that you were going to pull and push to help me get to where I said I wanted to get.
Right.
And I said, well, that's my job as a coach. You're going to pick a couple things, you're going to engage stakeholders, you're going to have to follow up with them. And I love the thing that we've added in the last few years, which is the daily sheet, which is
Yeah.
a magic move.
Right.
You know, they put down, did I defer to somebody's point of view
Right.
today? Did I build off of somebody else's idea?
Keep it in their
You know, and the whole use of active verbs versus passive
Right,
verbs.
right.
Did I do my best to be happy today?
Right.
Did I defer to somebody's point of view? That's active versus, was I happy today?
Yeah.
That being predicated on, did somebody else make me happy?
Right. Exactly.
So it's such a strong process. And back to one of your original questions is, I just feel, and I think I speak for Frank Wagner, we get better teaching this because we share these stories with people. We help external coaches, internal coaches, and we've watched where internal coaches can be just as effective as external coaches.
And we have research to back that up. Too.
Yes, we do.
A lot of research.
Yes.
Well, final thing I'd like to say is it's my honor to work with you. People send me notes all the time about stakeholders in our coaching and say the coaching process has been fantastic. They love it. They've learned a lot. I've almost gotten zero negative feedback from anybody. So I think you guys have done a fantastic job. I'm honored to work with you. So thank you very much.
My pleasure. Thank you, Marshall, for everything.
Thank you.